Okay, we're live. So
Yay.
this is the Nook Women Talk promo, and we're all excited to be here. We are here to celebrate a really cool giveaway we're doing. So I'm a B.E. Baker, but my real name's Bridget Baker, and I write under B.E. Baker and Bridget E. Baker, which is why both names show up on my profile. And I'm going to just explain the giveaway real quick, and then we're going to all introduce ourselves. So we're really 6 friends who all write women's fiction, and we're pretty excited to be partnering with Nook for this. So first, the giveaway. All of us have made a book free on Nook, only with a coupon code. So it's not free in the sense that everyone can go download it. You have to join our giveaway. And we have Nook helping us in the background. So they'll probably drop a link that you can go to. And you probably got an email from us, or you might have found us on Nook's webpage or some of their social. And if you are there, we would love to see you in the comments. So say hi to us. I just saw Kim is from Chandler, Arizona. We'd love to hear where you're from and say hi, please, because we're super happy to be here too. But we'll also talk when we introduce ourselves. We'll tell you where we're from, and we'll tell you what we like to do when we're not authoring. And we'll talk a little bit about whether we have pen names and kind of in general what we write. And then, but we're not going to tell you about all our books yet, because that's going to be the next thing we talk about. And we are authors, so we know how to lay the groundwork and then give you the payoff later. So we're going to have this. If you go to this subscribe page and you go sign up, everyone who signs up gets 6 free books, and you'll get a code to go make all the books free on Nook's website, and a link that you can go to put every single book one by one into your cart. You need to have all 6 books in your cart, and then you enter the code at checkout. And if you don't have a Nook account yet, you'll need to sign up for a Nook account. And you're going to get scared because you're going to say, they want a credit card. You just don't remember 20 years ago when you had to put your credit card in for Amazon. Because I put mine in so long ago, I'm not even sure where I put it in. So that's just standard store stuff if you don't already have a Nook account. But then this code that you'll get if you enter the giveaway will make all 6 books free. And there are 6 books that are not free. For most of us, they're our bestsellers. And so you'll get to know us and our writing some. And then one person that enters the giveaway will win a Nook e-reader. So we have some kind of cool and exciting stuff, something for everybody, something for one big winner, a grand prize. So we're going to kind of go in order. I talked to the ladies before we started. I was thinking Annabelle could start us out, and then we go to Naomi in kind of an order that puts me last, which is great because you've already heard me yammering too much. So you want to get us started, Annabelle?
Sure, I'll get us started. I was like trying to keep track of the people that were coming in. I saw like Australia and Northern Ireland and a bunch of places that I can't pronounce. What is that? Wauwatosa, Wisconsin. That's pretty cool. I'm Annabelle.
Wow.
I will stop talking about that. And Annabelle McCormack, and I write historical women's fiction with very strong romantic subplots and contemporary romance. I have a little bit of steamy open door in everything I write, so I'm probably the exception to that in this group. So just up front, so everybody knows what they get with me. But I really like to focus a lot on, strong female protagonists and very deeply emotional stories. With historicals, I love kind of the lesser known parts of history. So my first historical fiction series is in World War I, but it's set in Egypt and Palestine. So I really enjoy kind of digging into like little things like that people don't know as much about. And that's me. Oh, wait, do we want to know what I do in my spare time yet?
Yeah, and did you say, you have to say, I have blank, blank kids, blank, blank pets, and my hobby,
blank, blank kids.
And I live in blank.
Right. I have 5 kids because I like to stay busy, apparently. And I homeschool them all, actually. So that's always another really fun thing, too, about me. Everyone's like, are you nuts? I'm like, yeah, probably. So I have 5 kids. I have 2 dogs, 2 boxers. So the energy level in my house is very, very high all the time, which is great because, I have no energy anymore. So it really matches really well. And I live in Maryland. And for fun these days, I mostly go to the gym. I do CrossFit. So I know everybody that does CrossFit likes to talk about CrossFit, but like I do it. So I talk about it. So I like to go to the gym, and I used to be a photographer actually for 12 years. I was a professional photographer. So I still every now and then pick up my camera. And when I do take pictures these days, it's either of my kids or I like to bake. So I take pictures of that too. So.
Cool. Yeah, Annabelle and I bonded, I think, first over her having 5 kids. So the 2 of us.
It's like somebody else that understands.
I'm like, wow, if we got our families together, we could blow up like any restaurant that we went to.
Yeah, I know. Well, it was funny because when we saw each other at NINC, like I would introduce myself and be like, "Oh yeah, I have 5 kids," and be like, "I just met somebody else that has 5 kids." I'm like, "Oh, was
you're like, Bridget? Is your name like, Bridget?" Yeah. Weird.
Amazing.
Yeah. So the first time I met Naomi, I'm interrupting, even though I told her before she could just dive in, and then I cut her off. Naomi's like, "I hate you, Bridget." No, but the first time I met Naomi, ironically, I think she was sent in an email to me I was going to mentor her. Even though she was at least as far along as I was in her publishing journey, but she hadn't been to NINC before. And so they were assigning all the people that were at NINC for their first year mentor. So I got it and I was like, let me tell you about books. And she's like, oh, I already know some stuff. And I looked her up. I'm like, shoot, my first email took the wrong tone. Like, let me not tell you about books, but just see if you have questions about Florida. No, but she was pretty nice about it and she didn't hold it against me. So I mentored her through her first NINC successfully. And now she's here.
Yeah, well, I am an introvert, like 90% of the authors out there. I'm a pretty big introvert. So if I don't have to talk to people, I'm happy. And so going to a big writers conference in Florida is a little scary. Bridget wouldn't know that because I don't think she's ever been scared to talk to a person before in her life.
But it actually horrifies my husband because I talked to the checker at the sales counter. I talked to the person we're walking next to. I talked to the person at the crosswalk, and he's like, "Stop talking to all these people." I'm like, "Why don't you? They're just standing there."
Well, it's kind of nice though. I enjoy being around extroverts because then I don't have to do any talking, right? So I can just be quiet. So my husband's an extrovert. He is so social, and my oldest son as well. So about me, I write historical Christian fiction. So everything is nice and squeaky clean. I say no sex, swearing, or gore. It's what I say. You know, you can always depend on my books to have or not have those 3 things. And I say that I write books that take you back to a time when neighbors knew each other's names. So that maybe gives you a little bit of a vibe of my small town, close-knit families that I put in my historical novels. About me personally, I live in a kind of interesting place. It's the snowiest place in between the Appalachian and Rocky Mountains. We get about 20 feet of snow a year on average. We're real close to Lake Superior. We're right off Lake Superior. It's actually like a block from my house. And so we get a lot of lake effect snow. In fact, we're getting a snowstorm tonight, like 5 to 8 inches. And 5 to 8 inches of snow does not necessarily mean school will be canceled. Honestly, 8 inches of snow, if it falls overnight and it stops snowing by 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, gives the road commission enough time to get the roads cleared, we'll still have school. So yeah, we're probably one of the, if it's a foot of snow, we're probably canceled. 8 inches, 5 to 8 inches, pretty good chance we're still having school in the morning. So we're kind of hardcore with our snow removal and driving on snow and driving on ice. We do all get winter tires though. So, and it's not super hilly like in the mountains. We have some hills, but we don't have mountains. So in the mountains, they'll be like, you have to put chains on your tires or spikes on your tires to like go up the road so they have traction. We don't have to worry about that. Thank goodness. That seems a little extreme. But so one of the things we do in our spare time, my family, well, the rest of my family does it better than I do, but they like to ski, downhill ski. And there's a nice little hill that's just in our town. And it's not nearly as expensive or as extravagant as all of those like out west ski videos where it's like $300 a day for one person to go skiing. No, it's like It's like less than that for a season pass for one. We pay less than like one day to go skiing. But my husband and my middle son, who's 15, they are actually instructors at the local ski hill. So yeah, they don't even have to pay for their passes. So they all like skiing, and I am learning and I am improving. I really don't like things that go downhill quickly. I don't like roller coasters. I don't like slides, and I don't particularly like skiing, but let's just say I've had to do like more lessons and more training and more investing into teaching mom how to ski than all the other people in my family combined. But they love it, and I want to go with them and enjoy it. So
you started later than them, right? I mean, it's
oh,
not
yeah,
like
they started like 3 years ago. Yeah.
Oh my
You're
gosh.
just a cool mom who's willing to learn now.
Well, right. And the nice thing is there's like a class that's like to teach adults how to ski, and I'm in it with like 6 other women who get just as scared as me versus, you know, my kids are like, "Oh, mom, it's fine. I can go down super fast." Or like my daughter, you know, like she's so short. So she falls, but like she doesn't have that far to fall, right? So it's not like scared, like they fall and they get up again and they fall and they get up again.
So I went skiing once. My family didn't have very much money when I was growing up, but we were living in California, so there were ski slopes that we could drive to. So we went skiing one time, and I remember when we got there, my youngest sister, I'm the second oldest, but really effectively the oldest because I had an older brother and he was like a goofball. So my younger sister, there was like 4 or 5, and we got there too late to have a class, so we just started trying to ski, and they gave all of us poles, and we were a disaster. But my 5-year-old sister, they were like, "You don't need poles," and I'm like, what? And she was just zooming. She'd fall down, she'd get back up, she'd fall down. She didn't fall very far. She was the best skier in the end. She'd do the splits to stop and pop back up, and I'm like, oh,
yeah.
If you start skiing before your bones are really in, then you do fine.
Yeah, I should say too, my husband and my middle son, they both have like ADHD, and so skiing's actually really great for ADHD. It's because stimulation, they do really well under like stimulation or stress, and it's constantly like, how are the edges of your skis interacting with the slope, and how can you move your skis? So it's very tactile. To ski well is very tactile, and they're both very good with it. And then the ADHD makes our house, we have a constant element of crazy. I appreciate calm and stable, and they like crazy. So yeah, it's fun, keeps things interesting.
All right, now I'm going to just, in case any of you are looking at the beautiful name on our next author and you were wondering whether you could butcher it or say it right, the right way to say it is Stephenia, because I was saying it wrong. But see how pretty Stephenia sounds? That was right? Stephenia?
Stephenia. Yes.
Okay. So now it's your turn. Tell us where you live and family stuff and what you do when you're not writing.
Well, first I'm going to tell you my daddy's name is Stephen, and he decided to put an IA on the end of it. And for whatever reason, he decided that that was Stephenia. And I said, well, thank you, Daddy. I get to explain that to every person I meet for the rest of my life. So I am in the deep South. I live in the backwoods of Mississippi, where we do not have snow. If it looks like there's snow falling from the ground, we cancel everything. We buy all the bread and all the milk in the grocery stores, and we huddle in our house and we look out the window and we go, oh, look, there's a patch of snow in the shade. So we have no snow down here. We're the land of sweet tea and front porch rocking chairs. And my books are all steeped in the South. That's kind of my little theme. I write Christian fiction as well. I have contemporary, I have historical, and I also do time travel, which I think is a lot of fun. Because I always thought, what would it be like to go back to those historical eras that I love so much? And what would happen if I went to that time? And so I started writing those. But I'm kind of boring. I like to read books. I like to read books in my recliner with a blanket, and I like to read books in the swing on my back porch in the sunshine. I'm kind of like a cat. If there's a sunny spot, I'm going to find it. Let's see. I have been married to the hero of my story for 21 years. Aww. We have 2 teenage boys. My oldest will be 17 tomorrow. He leaves tonight to go to Guatemala on a mission trip. So my mama's heart is a little bit, he's never been out of the country, and I didn't expect his first time to be without me. So we've been trying to pack and argue over suitcases and get everything together today. And I'm like, okay, pause. I gotta go.
Does he speak any Spanish? ¿Él puede hablar español o no?
Little bit. Like he had to take Spanish 1 and 2. Right now he's all about Japanese. So he's learning Japanese on his own, which is like
which will not help him in Guatemala much.
It will not help him in Guatemala. No. Hopefully he remembers some of his Spanish phrases. And then my other kid's 15. So we got 2 teenage boys, which means my grocery bill is like up here. So let's see. Yeah, that's kind of it about me. I'm an introvert too. So
and yeah. Stephenia, do you have a pen name or do you only write under Stephenia McGee?
I only write under my name. Yep.
Great. All right, Lisa, we're up to you.
Hi, I'm Lisa, and I write historical fiction, both women's fiction and crime thrillers. So a little bit maybe darker than some of the other books that we have represented here. But let's see, a little about me. I live in South Carolina, over not near the beach, over near closer to the mountains. I'm about an hour from North Carolina, an hour from Georgia, right there in the corner of the state. So one of the things I love to do in my spare time is go hiking. It's a beautiful area for that. So I have one daughter. She is 9 years old. And so me and her and my husband, we like to go kind of explore the outdoors around us, and also love to read. So if I'm not outside hiking or, going on some adventure, then I'm probably reading. I do like to swim and lift weights as well. So, you might you might find me at the gym. And fun fact, I guess, about a relationship here is that I grew up in Maryland, and I grew up probably about 20 minutes away from Annabelle. So, but we didn't
know her then.
No. But when she comes back now, she'll be like, "Oh, I'm coming back." I'll be like, "Okay, we have to meet."
You guys connected as authors, and then later found out that she went back to visit her family.
Yeah.
So we just randomly met online as author friends, mm-hmm. and figured out that, because I did see that she lived in Maryland, but then when I found out where, I was like, that's so weird. You're like 20 minutes from where I grew up.
Yeah.
So.
And Annabelle, you're not from there?
The story of where I'm from is a very long story. Suffice it to say, I moved like 14 times when I was a kid, but when I was in 6th grade, I finally moved to Maryland, and then we continued to move around in Maryland. But I now technically, when I just want to make the short story and not, give everybody the drama, I'm like, yeah, I'm from Maryland. Sure. It works, So my mom is from Costa Rica, though.
We both have 5 kids, and I moved 17 times before I went off to college. So basically, Annabelle and I are the same person, but I dye my hair blonde.
There you go. Perfect.
And I'm like the opposite of that. I lived in one place my whole life until I was 18. And since then, I've moved to many states. So.
Oh my gosh. Oh. I think moving in as an adult is worse, though, because like when you're a kid, your parents do all your packing for you, And as an adult, like, I think I would just be like, you know what? I'm going to just sell everything. I don't want to move anywhere.
We're carpetbaggers.
Well, our first move, so me and my husband's first move down to Florida, we put everything in my Celica, like my little tiny Toyota Celica, and that was it. We're like, anything else we need, we'll buy it. But then later, obviously, once we had my daughter, it became much more difficult. Now, a lot of our moves were military moves. My husband was in the Air Force, so the military will move you. So they come and pack all your stuff and, put it in a truck and move across the country, which is nice. It's stressful on each end because you do have to live without like a bed for a couple days, or a week or 2 weeks, depending on how long it takes them. So.
And so I met Jan a couple of years ago, and I think we've done 3 of these, haven't we, Jan?
I think we have. They've all been fun.
A lot. Yeah. I love Jan. She and I love the tacos down in, I don't know which taco you get, but I think we've been to that taco place like 5 times.
Ooh, fish tacos, shrimp tacos. Yes. I love seafood. And like Bridget, I'm originally from Texas. I grew up in Austin, and I saw someone on there, Lisa from Georgetown, Texas. I want to give you a shout out. My mother lived there for quite a few years, so I spent a lot of time in Georgetown. And now, then I went to school in Boston, and then after graduation, I came to California. So Los Angeles, then out to La Quinta, and now I'm in San Diego, North County, San Diego, just a few minutes from the beach, which is a happy accident. Well, not really an accident, but a very, very happy because I go there for my inspiration. I write a lot of beach books. There's a few stacked up here in back of me, and I've written about 20 some odd beach books. 25 something.
And
And
people saying how much they love your books, especially audio books with Erin Bennett. So I thought you might like to hear that since you're talking and probably won't see the comments.
oh, Erin is the best. She's a friend. I see her in LA, and she was at the Audie Awards just the other day. She is a multi-award winning narrator, narrates for all the big ones, Ellen Hildebrand, and just a ton of people. She's a gem. I just love her. She brings a story to life. I'll listen to one of my books, and she has me in tears, and I wrote it. And I'm wondering what happens next. Are they going to get together?
Books are really good. So that I mean, I'm not saying she makes Erin's job easy, but I'm not saying she makes it hard.
Well, a good narrator is so important. But I also write historical fiction, as a few others do. That's where I actually began my writing journey with St. Martin's Press out of New York, and I wrote World War II sagas. I really loved writing the 1950s and some dual timelines. So I have Hepburn's Necklace and The Chocolatier, two of my best-selling historicals. And then, of course, we'll be talking about The Coral Cottage in a little while. I created Summer Beach, a little community in Southern California, fictional. And although we all wish we could go there and live, because it's a wonderful place, it's a happy place, great neighbors, lots of interesting people. And so I set two full series there, the Coral Cottage and Summer Beach, which starts with the Seabreeze Inn. And then I created another island off the coast. And that's what I do in my spare time. That's my fun, really, is writing books. But I also love to
granddaughter too, right?
I mean, granddaughter. Am I the only grandma here? I think I am.
I think you might be. She's a pretty cool grandma, though, and she tells me the stuff she does with her granddaughter. I'm like, I'm not saying my mom's falling down on the job. I'm just saying Jan sets a high bar.
Well, I've only got one granddaughter, so that's it. And so she gets 100% of my attention. And yes, we go to Disneyland, and I take the family traveling. We've been to Spain and England, and just we've got a trip planned for Australia. I see someone from Australia there. And then I think our next trip, well, I'm going to Aruba in just a few weeks. So I love to travel, and I love to get into my writing.
You can see how hard Jan has such a hard life, right?
Oh, this is what you do
right now.
This is what you do when the kids leave home, you see.
Actually, I remember one of the first conversations I had with Jan. She was telling me how many books she puts out a year or something. And I asked her something, and she's like, Bridget, I love to write beautiful stories. I love my readers, but I also would like to enjoy my life. And I was like, you're a smart lady. I was like,
we only go around once.
You should do that.
We've got to make the most of it. And yes, life is too short.
All right. So I'm last. I know you've probably heard a lot from me, but I'll tell you a couple of things about my life instead of just laughing and chatting. I have 5 kids like Annabelle. I live in Houston. We also completely shut down. Sometimes we just shut down because it's under 32. And I'm like, there's no snow. And I'm like, kids would be cold at the bus stop. And I'm like, oh, okay. What? So we actually had a school closure for being cold once. Houston is not really made for anything but like hurricanes, guys. So anyway, I'm in Houston, and I think my dad taught me something when I was young, and that is, if a little bit if something is good, a lot is better. So I have applied that principle to everything in my life. I have 5 kids. I have 8 horses. I have 30 chickens. Don't tell my HOA. I have 2 cats, and I have 4 dogs, except right now I also have 4 puppies in my family room. They're Pomeranians.
Did Bridget die on us?
I was gonna say, can anybody else hear?
Am I still here? Are you guys there?
You died, and now I think you came back to life. So
Yeah, there you go.
you have a Pomeranian. That was the last thing I heard.
I think she's still frozen because
Oh, maybe. All right. Do we move
Yes.
on to the next question then?
she has Pomeranians. She has 4 puppies right now, doesn't she?
Yeah,
Like
puppies in the family room.
Little
was
tiny
fun.
puppies.
Oh, she's back.
You lost me. I'm sorry. Anyway, so we have a lot of chaos at our house all the time, and apparently internet that likes to just blink out, which is always fun. I've written 53 books. I just had 3 books come out in a 2-week period. That was like an inadvertent mess. And then I write under 2 names. So I write women's fiction under B.E. Baker, and I write like fantasy romance. So like horse shifter romance, dragon shifter romance, young adult Game of Thrones. So Annabelle and write and like adult content. And I think Jan, Naomi, Stephenia, and I write clean. So my stuff has no adult content and no language. And well, I think I have a handful of mild swear words across all 53 books. But it's like, you could count them all on these hands. And there are things that in the South, we don't really always consider to be swear words. We have our own code here, but very, very mild swear words out of 53 books. And then as far as what I do when I'm not writing, I ride horses a lot. Obviously, we have 8 horses, 5 are on property and 3 jump competitively. So they're boarded at the barn where my girls do their jumping lessons. And then I work out. I taught workout classes for almost 20 years, but I just don't have time. And I do law, but just part-time. I'm in-house counsel for a company here. And because I'm an extrovert, I have a couple of ladies that come over and work out with me almost every morning. And sometimes we go ride together. And then I used to have a lot of hobbies that have kind of gone by the wayside now that I spend all my free time writing or hanging out with my kids. So and animals, those are kind of my hobbies now. So and then the next thing and I'm from Texas. So if you're from Texas, say hi.
There's I have literally no more time, Bridget, for you to have any other hobbies. Like everything you listed, you're like, here's all the things I do. Oh, and I don't have any
someone was asking me, they're like, where did that quilt come from? I'm like, oh, I quilt. And they're like, you quilt? I'm like, well, I haven't for a while because I don't have any time anymore. And I used to hand make cards and I did all these scrapbooks. And now I just do that on Shutterfly because I don't have time to do the fun stuff. I'm stuck like, I can't do it. Like, it's too many things. So anyway, the horses take up a lot of time. And we do like to travel. I wrote a book that was set in Ireland so that I could then go to Ireland for research and deduct it.
As only a tax lawyer would, right? That's like perfect tax lawyer stuff.
So I had a book on the roster that I'm writing that's going to happen. They're going to go on a girls' trip to Prince Edward Island because they loved the Anne of Green Gables stuff. And then I pushed it because I'm going on a girls' trip there. And I'm like, I have to go there before this book comes out because it's research. So I had to push it back on my schedule when we pushed our trip. Anyway, so I like to travel and I like to go places that I'm writing about. So like before I wrote a book in Liechtenstein, we went to Liechtenstein. I set a dragon shifter book in Iceland. So we all went to Iceland. Anyway, I justify my travel with books. I hope the IRS is not listening. No, it's all above board. I'm actually researching.
It's legitimate research.
It is research. Anyway, so the next thing we're all going to talk about is we're all going to mention a little bit about the book that we have for free. So the book that you guys can get in this giveaway. So Annabelle's going to kick us off again, unless she doesn't want to. And she's
No,
going to.
I can kick us off. So
Great.
the book that I'm giving away is Windswept. Just as another heads up, just because of the fact that it was mentioned, some people are reading our Christian fiction and whatnot. My book is not Christian fiction. It does have some open door adult content. It is not super graphic. It's just adult open door content. Swearing, actually, there's not quite too much of it, but it's enough, that people who take offense might get offense. But it's not like my contemporary romance books, which have a little bit more. It is part of a saga series is set in World War One. This one, which is part of the first three books, is the first one. It's actually my best-selling book, and it is about a nurse in World War One, Palestine, and it takes place where the British in 1917 were going up and going closer to Jerusalem, and she gets involved in a spy plot, and she ends up having to figure out what side this intelligence that she's come across is really on, and how she can get it to the right people. And then the more involved she gets, of course, she ends up falling in love with an intelligence officer who she doesn't know if she can trust. So that this is the first book in three. So there's three to this particular set in terms of the.
Hold it closer, Annabelle, so we can
What's
see
that?
it. Hold the book closer so we can see it, because the cover's so pretty.
It's the first of three that is set in World War One. The first book is Windswept, the second one is Sands of Sirocco, and the last one is Whisper in the Tempest, and then that takes us through the end of World War One, basically. So, yep.
Great, Naomi.
So my book is called Tomorrow's First Light, and it is one of my readers' favorite books whenever I ask, because I've written like 18. I'm like, which one is your favorite? And my current series that I'm writing, set in Alaska, might get some answers, but before I started that series, it was the Tomorrow's First Light, and so it is the first book in a series, and the series has a couple cute things going on. So it's kind of like they say a found family trope. So I've got like these five friends who at the ripe old age of 13 spy the preacher kissing the school teacher, the town teacher, and they make a pact about whether or not they're going to get married before they're 30. And like three of them are like, yes, I'll get married. And two of them are like, I'm not ever getting married. Women are stupid. They all have different backgrounds. Like one's mom just died. One's an orphan and all he wants is a family. One's mom just died and he's missing his mom. One has like a pretty messed up mom and he's like all, men and kissing and all that is trouble. And so anyway, the deal is by 30 years old, if they break the pact, they either don't get married or they do get married, then their head gets shaved. And so that's kind of like just a prologue that kind of has it running through the whole thing.
So Naomi, some of them said they were going to, some of them said they weren't. And if they change their vote, basically, then they have to shave their head.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so they tease each other about it throughout the whole thing. And of course, the person who does like the most teasing throughout the series, he gets it the worst. But anyway, so that's like the series kind of setup. You have these five friends that grew up together in a small town, and then three of them stick around, two of them take off, and then end up coming back. And so in the first book, Tomorrow's First Light, Ellie is a mail order bride who comes down to Texas to work to marry Sam and help with this ranch that he just got given. He's the orphan and he's like, I just want a family. His whole life he's wanted family, he's wanted a place to belong, he's wanted some land. And so one of the people he had worked for in the past, gives him the land when he dies. And so he needs a wife. So he's writing Ellie, and Ellie comes down from Michigan. And Ellie has like a lot of siblings, like 8 siblings. So, and they had it all worked out. She's going to bring the 2 oldest siblings down to help on the ranch after her mom dies, and then the one little baby to take care of. And then things go wrong with the 5 kids in the middle. Aunt can't take them anymore. And so Ellie ends up bringing all all 8 of the kids down to Texas without Sam knowing. And so Sam suddenly has like a huge family to take care of, but he doesn't really feel like he can turn Ellie away and he doesn't want these kids to go to an orphanage, but he doesn't have money to take care of them. So it's a cute little, they get married. It's a marriage of convenience, and they're kind of stuck together, him and Ellie and all the kids. Some of the kids are they're on team Sam and Ellie, some of the kids are not, and it's just a really cute little story that a lot of people really enjoy. So
well, you have me ready. I downloaded mine on Nook this morning, so I'll read that one.
Yay, good.
All right, Stephenia.
All right, so mine that I'm giving away is The River Queen. And I love this series. So I set a series on the Mississippi River in the 1920s. And in this first book, there's going to be 3 of them. There's 2 out now. I'm working on the 3rd one. They have to deal with river pirates and gangsters and bootlegging and smuggling and all those things. But Enola is a singer on a showboat. And she is probably, of all my 21 books that I have, she is probably my very favorite. She's everything I want to be when I grow up. Like she's spunky and she's funny and she's really quick-witted, and she has a very interesting showboat family. They're putting on shows and plays as they go down the river, and they're very quirky and they're so much fun together. And then she meets Emmett, who gets his steamboat stolen. He's thrown in the river and he swims up to this showboat soaking wet. And she's like, oh, you really wanted to see the show, didn't you? And he's an accountant, so he's very logical and quiet. And she's very flamboyant and a performer. And so they kind of have to outrun these river pirates and the gangsters and solve things.
It's opposite attract then, huh?
Yeah.
I like that one. Yeah.
So yeah, I had so much fun with this one because it was a very different kind of setting for me. I've never done anything on the river. So like we went to Vicksburg and we went to Natchez and we did a lot of Mississippi River research, which is
hard. I feel very bad for you. That sounds difficult.
Yeah. And one of the really fun things about this particular series, and I'll show you the other cover in a minute, but if you can you see her? It's kind of got a glare. She has this dress. It's a peacock dress. So it's teal, and all the way down the back are these peacock feathers that she found in a curiosity shop, and she makes this dress. My mother made this dress, this real actual dress. It has 500 hand sewn feathers down the back of this dress. And so our cover model wore it for the photo shoot for the cover and did the headband and got all the feathers and everything. So that's pretty cool. So it's one of my favorites. It's my newest series.
I have a really important question, Stephenia. I genuinely want to know, why aren't you wearing the dress now?
Oh, yes.
I did not think about that.
I want that.
For you to find a break, like when one of us might be rambling on, you could put it on. We would all clap.
Do you know how long it takes to get that thing?
Oh, fine.
No, I once put a hoop skirt in a carry-on case and took it to a convention that we had, a reader event. I put a hoop skirt in a carry-on case and I took it and I wore that Civil War era ball gown. I had to wear one to the last like book club event that I did. They're like, oh, wear the dress. Because I have a lot of these dresses from the cover shoots because I want them to be custom. And my mom does photography and stuff. So we usually can get these pictures. And yeah, so I have all these big, like giant dresses that take up space in her house and not in mine.
Smart. Jan and I have a really good friend named Kay Carell. Some of you guys may read Kay's books, and she does a lot of her covers too. This is like, I do everything. I don't have any fancy dresses, and all my covers are made by a cover artist, but that's really cool. We have author goals. We come to these, we learn how fun it is to be an author, and then I'll let my mom know she has a dress to make.
Yeah, I still send everything to the cover artist because I'm not like gonna, but she does. My mom does these photo shoots and has all this, and some of them we do on location, like at the house that's on the cover of the book. And then I send all these pictures to the cover artist. I'm like, okay, make something with that.
That is really cool.
It's fun.
All right, Lisa.
All right. So the book I'm giving away is called Signed to Patty, and it is also my best-selling book. So I will show you the cover to Signed to Patty. This takes place in Ireland in the very beginning. She's not in Ireland for very long, but it's the mid-1800s during the Great Potato Famine. And she ends up an orphan. The main character, she starts out 14 years old. Both of her parents are dead. So she goes to a workhouse. She ends up at a workhouse. She eventually makes her way to America. So she ends up in Massachusetts, right at the birth of the Industrial Revolution. And so she gets involved with a lot of things going on there, including the abolitionist movement, a labor union, one of the first in the country, in the history of the country. So it's really a coming of age story. There is also a love story that is included in this. She meets a guy on the boat who's a couple years older than her, and so their young love blossoms. But it is the start of a series. There are 2 other books. It's a trilogy, and so the series follows Rosaline through the American Civil War. So the 3rd book kind of it's a lot about the Irish American community and how they were involved in the American Civil War. So that's where the series will take you. And there is, I know we had talked about adult content. There's very little adult content in this series. If anything, I guess the profanity is probably the biggest thing, especially in book 3. I couldn't really write so the book is mainly from Rosaline's perspective, except the series is mainly from Rosaline's perspective, except for the 3rd book is part her perspective, part her husband's perspective. And he's a soldier in the Civil War. So it was going to be hard for me to write, battle scenes without some swearing. So they're
come on, you could have just written bleepity blippity blop. It wouldn't have pulled people out of the story.
No, not at all. It would have been very realistic. No, so it's, this is not as bad with profanity as my crime thrillers. Those are, I would say, a little, you can expect some gore, some profanity. But this series is, especially this first book, Signed to Patty, is, it's very mild. And so it's not, there is some swearing, but beyond that, it's just a nice coming of age story.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. All right, Jan.
All right. I'm here to talk about Coral Cottage. This is the one that you'll be able to download for free. And this is the first in my Coral Cottage series set in Summer Beach. The series has 7 books, and it's a complete series. So when you start, you can sweep all the way through it. It's about, I love to write about women in families with siblings and children and parents and grandparents. I love multi-generational family sagas. So this one is no different. It's about Marina Moore. She's in her 40s, and it's her time for a second chance in life and in love. It opens where she is she's a local newscaster. She's on television, and she's been there for a long time. She's in San Francisco, raising twins on her own. Her husband passed away, died in Afghanistan even before the twins were born. So she's had an uphill battle all the way, but she's winning. She's making it happen. And she's engaged to an architect, very high profile architect. And as the scene opens, one of her co-anchors with the celebrity news happens to mention that her fiance is now engaged to another woman, to a singer. And of course, her world just implodes right then. She gets upset. She ends up losing her job or quitting before technically they can fire her. And her fiance all within just a few minutes. So it's some kind of record there. And she's devastated. The only place she knows where she can go and heal, her two twins are off at college right now. And the only place where she wants to go is to her grandmother's cottage in Summer Beach. So many people who've read The Seabreeze Inn, set in Summer Beach, will recognize many of the same places. We've got Java Beach and the Seabreeze Inn and some other fun restaurants, Rosa's Tacos. Yes, they serve fish tacos, Bridget. And so that's how the story kicks off. I write mainly free of profanity. Some of my historical fictions, again, the World War II saga, there will be some what I call
bleepity blippity blop, bleepity blop.
Yes.
I go with he cursed under his breath, or he
Oh, that's a good one
I
too.
hear that
That's a
a
good one
lot,
too.
man.
Yes.
My readers are always like, "It was so clever. You just said he swore." I'm like, "Yes, I'm so clever."
Yes. So that's that, and I do love my historicals too. There is a little more. I call them PG rated. When I was writing those, my mother was still living. She was in Georgetown, and I was brought up with just no swearing in the house. I didn't even know words existed until I was in high school.
You're just a big disappointment, Jan.
Oh, I am in so many ways, I'm sure. But anyway, I got called if there was a scene that was maybe a little bit too racy for for a G rating. But you won't find any of those in my beach books. Those are strictly in my historical and my Sunshine and Second Chances
You
series.
need to get a sticker for them that says "Not Mother Approved."
Well, she actually did approve those because she said
Reluctantly Mother Approved.
it was tasteful. I had to be tasteful about it. No body parts, just so anyway. But love what I do. Love what I do. I hope all of you download every book from all the other great authors here. We pour our hearts and souls into them, and our job is to keep you entertained. That's my mission. Yes.
I almost always rat Jan out here just because I think it's amazing and she's a girl boss. But I forgot to do it in the introductions. I don't know how many of you know this, but Jan is not only beautiful and talented and a beautiful writer, but she's also a Harvard alum, which I think is pretty awesome. So I just wanted to mention it because she's wonderful in all the ways.
Oh, well, I went there for business school and loved Boston, loved living on the East Coast, and go back every chance I get. So I've never missed a reunion yet. And I love bringing that into the books as well, at least the business side of it. So my characters, yes, they're often starting over. I love to write about women pulling themselves up by their bootstraps and doing whatever they have to take to protect their families and provide for them. But I also love to bring in real history and real ways that they find to run their businesses or create their marketing campaigns, or you'll see me writing about ROI, return on investment. So those are the sort of things that I like to write. Smart women's fiction. I like something that's going to keep my attention and hopefully that of my readers too. So that's bonus.
I think that may be why Jan and I get along so well. I tend to obsess a little bit and want everything. I know there's nothing wrong with this, but there's kind of a divide when you're writing fiction. I feel like about half of the people I don't know if it's half and half, but some of the people are writing in like a fictitious town or fictitious stuff. Like they're not trying to write in a concrete world. And then some people are like, it needs to be exactly what happened. And I'm here. I keep trying, like, this time I'm going to write a fictitious town so that I don't have to fact check restaurants. I don't have to see if this is there. This doesn't have to line up. And then I'm like, I fall into a research hole and all of my books end up being real things. So my book for this one is called The Bequest. And it is in a real place. And I mentioned that I was a lawyer and I do as little legal work as I can now because I'm mostly writing. But I happen to have a client who was also a dear friend whose husband had just passed away. And it was just shocking. Like, he was young, he was in good shape, he was a police chief, and he just had a heart attack and passed. And her sister-in-law had just lost her husband a year before, and they didn't get along. She's like my sister-in-law, and we don't get along at all. And then after both losing their husbands, who had been brothers, they became very close. And so that gave me an idea, right? I'm always looking for ideas. And I had another client whose trust I had been handling all along, their family trust, for a property that was on the border of Wyoming and Utah. And it's called the Birch Creek Ranch. And it's this massive cattle ranch. And so I started talking to my client and dear family friend. And I said, I kind of want to use your ranch for a book. I want to have, because his parents, when they passed, they said, yes, this property be split amongst our kids, but only if someone doesn't want to work it as a cattle ranch. So I took that idea and I said, what if these two widows that don't really get along, they were married to brothers, but the brothers were different. The women are very different. Their husbands have both passed. They're not close. They don't really talk. And they get this call because their kind of somewhat estranged uncle died and left a massive cattle ranch to their kids. But he's only leaving it to them if they come out and work it. He wants them to work it for at least a year, so maybe they'll have a chance of staying and continuing to work it. If they won't work it for a year, the ranch is sold and the proceeds go to an alien foundation. And so I liked that idea because when I met my husband, his family, they're farmers. And so he was very familiar with animals and tractors and plows and driving trailers, and none of this was a big deal to him. And we hadn't been married very long when he was like, I think we should get some chickens. And I am not kidding, guys. I looked at him. I was like, have you met me? What about me makes you think I would want chickens? And he's like, you won't have to do anything with them. I'll keep them at the back of the property. We were on like 2 acres. And I was like, as long as I don't have to touch them, I don't care. I buy my eggs from the grocery store. And I think you probably heard me say I have 30 chickens. Like shortly after, I was like, they're my babies. They're my best friends. We go everywhere. They follow me around. They all have names, right? So I went from this city girl who was like, animal poo, oh no, to now I'm like drowning in animals. And my husband works out of town half the month and I homeschool a couple of my kids. So I'm like, got one kid over here and we're talking about a math problem and I'm over here moving hay bales and I've like learned to drive the tractor and plow the field. And so I thought this will be interesting and fun to write about these women who don't like each other and their children. Some came from New York City, some came from Houston, and was a lawyer with 4 kids. But it's not me because I have 5 kids. So anyway, so I wrote these women and the challenges that they had to go through and the things that they had to deal with. And that series is actually complete. The book in this one, I think, works as a standalone, but of course there are 7 books behind it. So it does have, the series has a lot of romance. A lot of my readers call it a romance, but it is very much a women's fiction. There isn't even a kiss in book 1. So if you're someone who's like, I want things popping on the romance, well, you have some books to read before this romance is, let's call it slow burn. But you do get a romance. Every person that I introduce as a main character gets her love story, but it's not like they met, their eyes sparked, her hand brushed his, and whoop, spilled the coffee. Oh, here, let me get you a new shirt. Let's get married. Okay, mine's a lot longer. So anyway, not saying any of the other people here write that and that there's anything wrong with that, but that's not what the bequest is.
That's my next book, Bridget.
Well,
Now you know what authors
I
really
have now
talk about.
plotted your next spilled coffee, new shirt, engagement. Anyway, so that's not these. But it's funny because I actually had someone who got on and literally on Goodreads was like picking apart everything about the book they hated, and everything was me. I'm like, they're like, a lawyer would never use these words. I'm like, lawyer? Used those words. They're like, a lawyer could never do things with animals. They would drown on a ranch. I'm like, lawyer, basically running a ranch. Like, they're like, a lawyer that's running a cattle ranch would love meat. And I'm like, don't like meat, almost never eat it. I'm like, you're right. This book is ridiculous. So if those things sound crazy to you, you'll want to avoid the bequest. Anyway, so that's that one. And now we're going to talk to you guys a little bit about whatever we're working on or a new release or something we're excited about that we think you also might check out. Remember, all the books we just talked about, you can go download for free. These other ones that we're talking about are going to be a recent release or something that we're working on that will be out pretty soon. So these will be other books that we love and are excited about and want to tell you about, because a lot of the people on this feed have already said, I have every single one of those books. I've read these. These are my favorite books. So we're hoping you'll find some new authors, but then we're also going to give you a little heads up about what just came out or other series maybe you haven't read. So we are going to start. I know this will be a shock to everyone, with Annabelle. Are you ready?
I always feel so underprepared, and then when everybody's talking, I'm like, "Oh, I should have said this."
Well, do you want us to go in reverse
No,
order?
no, it's okay.
Okay.
I'm just joking. It's fine. I can handle it. I'm fine. So I'm currently working on. So there's one project that I just published. So I just published this, Ever With Me. This is the last book in my contemporary small town romance series. It's a Brandywood series. It's set in fictional town because I like to have the freedom to have something that I don't have to research so hard because of historicals.
She's on the other side.
Well, but you know, when you write the historicals, right? Everybody's like nitpicking every detail, and you have to spend the time researching. So that's why I write the romances, so that I can just be like, oh, let me research, you know, the flight time between London and Maryland, and that's easy, you know, as opposed to like the etymology of random words. So anyway, I made fictional town Brandywood, Maryland, which is, if you're familiar with Maryland, on the western side of the state near the mountains. So it's a mountain little small town. And that's the 5th book in it. It just came out in February. Of course.
Do you have it? Did you hold it up?
I did. I held it up. Yeah. And this is actually probably some of the most promo I've done for it, because
such a pretty cover, Annabelle. What a pretty cover.
Thank you. I just got new paperbacks for it, and I really love the new paperbacks. They're really pretty. I caught the flu, though, of course, on release day, and my whole family did. So it's just been like trying to, like, you know, squeeze in that stuff has just been awesome.
You do sound a lot better. You sounded pretty bad, and I was like, how are you going to sound in the live?
I know it was. Well, I mean, I was like, I was telling Lisa, I'm like, I don't know, I'm like hoping that I'm just not coughing the whole time, you know.
Well, she sounded very different when she was leaving me voice chats a couple of days ago. I was like, oh, Annabelle.
I rested my voice all day. So that one I just put out. That's my contemporary small town series. That one again, open door, and it does have more profanity. I'd put it around a 3 chili pepper spice level, we'll call it. But so, you know, if that's something you're averse to, that's fine. I understand everybody's tastes are different. But I'm also currently working on a spin-off series to the book that actually I'm giving away. There is a character in that series that everybody adored. They loved him so much. And after I wrote the last book for the trilogy, I just had so many requests saying, please, 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 please give this guy his story. He needs his story. He needs his story. So I took a year off because I'm actually flash forwarding 10 years in the future. But now I'm writing his story, and that'll come out in October, and that's called A Spark in Ashes. And that will be another historical, and it'll be 1930s, right around the time that the Nazis came into power, and really focusing on, you know, the people who saw the warning signs, which in that time period were really kind of like the journalists and the diplomats, right? There were not a lot of people who were seeing the warning signs as well as they were. And he's an archaeologist, so he's there's going to be some interesting tie-in with the way that the nationalist movements were happening throughout the different countries. All these books have been set in the Middle East, so I'm definitely going to tie into that as well.
Annabelle, is that on pre-order already or no?
Just the ebook is on pre-order. The paperback is not, because I have not finalized the cover. I actually, because I am a photographer, I'm going to be setting up a photo shoot for it, because I need to. Getting these historical pictures is actually getting more challenging. So I'm actually going to do.
It's really hard for historical.
It's very difficult. So yeah, I'm doing a casting call, and I'm going to get some proper costuming, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to shoot the pictures for the cover, I believe.
I can relate a little bit, because it's almost impossible to find a dragon shifter to pose for any of my fantasy romance stuff. I look everywhere, and I'm like, you're also not really a dragon shifter. It's like,
Yeah, it's pretty hard. No, I mean it's a challenge. Certain genres, like it's just like trying to find the right photos is just very difficult. And so my cover designer and I have been combing through some of the available photos, and of course the available ones are all the royalty ones. And it's complicated all that stuff, but you know, but there's not a
who's
lot.
saying hi? I want to see a dog.
That would be my dog saying hi to my husband who just walked in the door downstairs.
Can I see your dog? I want to see it.
No, he raced out of my bedroom and to say hi. Yes.
So yeah, so I've got that one coming, and and this is a total different spinoff. When I started writing fantasy many years ago when I was 12 years old, and I wrote a romantic fantasy. And that one I'm actually I'm in the process of getting it ready for market. It's a little long, so we'll see how it does with the traditional market. And if it doesn't go that way, then I'll have another announcement about that, probably to publish at the end of the year. So we'll see.
It's exciting. All right, Naomi, you're up.
All right, so I am currently working on my Dawn of Alaska series. This one, I went to Alaska for a research trip. It was not like a lot of fun stuff. It was like, let me set up appointments to talk to all these historians. Let me have a list of all these museums. I did not take the whole family. I took my mom because I knew my mom could entertain herself in a museum for hours on end. And so it would work out well. So I went to Alaska for 9 days and I studied everything because I was just reading about it and the history wasn't making sense. So
that's what I do too. On my research trips,
yes.
I'm always working.
That's what it sounded like when you went to Iceland. To be fair, I took a trip to Texas for my Texas series, and that was a little more fun. And I just wanted to like feel the desert and be like, all the pictures were like, is the ground really like yellow rock everywhere? Like, where's the dirt? It's just yellow rock. I can't believe this place exists. And then I went there and it really like, you need sunglasses, not for the sun, but then for the glare, like off the rocks. It's really insane, that part of Texas. But I went to Alaska and I kind of dove into the history. So this is like probably the most historically intense series that I've written. But my motivation for it was, do you remember the old TV show Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman? My motivation for it was that TV show. I was like, I'm going to write a female doctor. She's going to be amazing, but I'm going to send her to Alaska instead of Colorado.
All right, Naomi, here's your important question.
Yes.
Is Sully in it?
Yes, Sully's in it, but
I need a Sully.
It's not, yeah, but Kate doesn't marry Sully. Kate and Sully are brothers, or brother and sister. So Sully's story is coming out in May. So yeah,
I kind of need that one. You can make her a lawyer from Texas.
Yeah. So the first book of this. So I say the series is like Dr. Quinn. That was the inspiration for it. But then I was like, well, I want Dr. Quinn, but I want a big sprawling family that feels like Bridgerton, because I love like the family feel of Bridgerton. So it's kind of like Dr. Quinn meets Bridgerton. So my Dr. Quinn, her name is Kate. And her book came out in November. It's called Above All Dreams. So you can grab it if you want it. But then Kate has a twin sister. Her name is Evelina. And they, twin sister went to Boston with Kate. Well, Kate went to medical school because they're twins and whatever. And then Evelina's nice and sweet. And she was just going to become like a teacher, because that's the thing that, you know, a woman would do back then if you wanted to get educated. And she was kind of bored with teaching school, so she became a lawyer instead. So I actually have a female lawyer, and you didn't know that, did you? Yeah.
You need to write me a really hot Sully, and then you can dedicate that one to me. That'll be fine.
I have a hot dedicate the hot Sully one to you. All right. I'm going to have to write the dedication like the next month. So I'll be like, this is for Bridget Baker because she wanted a hot Sully.
Sully wears some buckskin pants and has a six-pack, and then we're all set. We can be friends.
Yeah. Sully wears buckskin pants.
So I grew up watching Dr. Quinn with my mom. And like when I was a kid, so right now, Don't judge me. I watch Vampire Diaries with my girls. And so they all like Damon. I'm not a good parent, but my mom watched Dr. Quinn with me. And so I wanted to find a Sully. I'm like, woo, no shirt and buckskin pants, and he can throw a hatchet at anything. Great. I did not marry a Sully. My husband has no hair, but he is very smart and handsome. He just does not have a lot.
I say that with Dr. Quinn, like everybody watched that show for the same character. It was just different motivation. Like men and women both watched it because of Sully, right?
I was inspired by Dr. Quinn too. That woman is probably the most beautiful woman alive, in my opinion. So I was like, we have beautiful women to watch who are smart and women's rights. And then this super hot guy who's like, yes, women's rights. I'll chop anyone in half if they disagree. I'm like, yes.
Yeah. So the Dawn of Alaska series gets a little more into women's rights than I kind of would have thought when I started writing it. But because I had the female lawyer, female doctor, and then I have the family that is unconventional and very supportive of the sisters that have these different roles. So yeah, it's really fun. And Sully's pretty pro women's rights, because I'm writing his story right now. I just sent it to the editor. It's called Echoes of Twilight. And so he gets called in to meet party of lost botanists, because there's all these government surveys of Alaska. It was within 20 years of America purchasing Alaska, and the government's like, you know, what exactly did we buy from Russia? And by the way, where's the gold, right? Like, where's the gold that's going to make us rich and pay for the price of Alaska? And so
you guys are confused. The gold is black.
Yeah, right.
Oil. You haven't found it.
So Sully, Mikhail, the reborn, reimagined Sully, he gets sent in like kind of on the brink of winter to find a party of botanists that went missing and didn't come back. And so he's got to go in and bring him back. And wouldn't you know that lead scientist's daughter is there making these maps and doing these sketches of the plants that her father's studying and everything. And yeah, there's a little bit of falling in love. There's even, you probably don't know this, but I remember in Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman, there's this scene that's just like so amazing. And it's probably from the first or second season. And Sully and Dr. Mike get trapped in the wilderness. They're like studying some like mining that might be polluting the water. And
she's 30% of the episodes so far.
She breaks her arm and she's having trouble brushing her hair, and Sully brushes her hair for her. Oh, it's so like, it just melts your heart. So yeah, I put that in my new book. I'm like, I gotta have a hair brushing scene in the wilderness. It's just so like romantic and warm. It's like hot without the spice. I like that in my books. I like hot without the spice. So yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right, Stephenia, what do you got?
All right, now I'm working on my time travel series. I'm on book 7. And that
are we traveling to?
Huh?
What time are we traveling to?
This is actually my first one where somebody comes forward. So in the series, it's new characters for each book, and they go to this bed and breakfast. And when they stay in a room, they usually find something interesting, usually something they can touch, and they get sent back in time to that era. So it's back in time, INN, back in time. And so they get sent to that different time period. And I've got to play with a lot of different ones. But this is my first one where I'm bringing somebody forward. So I've been having a lot of fun introducing this girl to the internet and cell phones and vacuum cleaners and dishwashers and all this stuff. And she just took a very scary trip in a truck that was going 25 miles an hour, which was horrific. Such speeds should not be had. And so I've been having a lot of fun with that. I love that series. And then I'm working on plotting out the final book in my River series. This is book 2. That's Moonlight on the Mississippi. And if you can see it, do you see that precious little dog that sits like a toddler on her hip? That is my Spinny. So Spinny is my little toddler who rides on my hip like she's a person. And so my character has a dog in the story who lives on the steamboat with her. She's a female steamboat captain. And this one's a treasure hunt. So they're looking for a treasure. And she has a little dog named Tallulah, Lula for short, for the Tallulah River. And so Spinny got to be on the book cover. So she had a lot of fun with that. We actually had to take a picture of me holding her and then send that to the.
She'd be positioned in the right way for her to transfer the picture. That's cute.
Yeah, and then she could transfer it because Mom was like, "Oh, we'll get a model," and I said, Spinny is not going to ride on anybody else's hip. She's going to be barking her head off. Like, that's not going to work. So yeah, they had to like transfer over, but. So she got to be on that one. I don't know what I'm going to do fun for the third book cover. Like, I just started plotting it. And this one, he's so my main character is the cop that finally gets to kind of try to take down this river pirate gangsters that have been throughout the series. So each one has its own. You can read it as a standalone. Each one has its own character, its own story, but they're all set on the river. And then there's kind of this overarch of the gangsters and the smuggling, and so in this third one we'll get to have the policeman and trying to bring all that down. I don't have a title for it yet, so I'm working on that, and we'll have to find something fun and interesting that I can do for the cover on that one too. But yeah, that's what I got.
All right, Lisa, you are up.
So the book that I am currently doing edits for and rewrites is coming out in July. It's on pre-order, and it is the third book in my crime thriller series. So this is my second book, which was called No One Left. The first book is In the Silence of Decay, which...
Hey, Lisa, are these connected? Do they need to start with book one, or can they pick them up standalone?
They could pick it up standalone, but it's probably it's better to start with book one, but they can be read.
Show them book one just in case they don't know.
So the only one I think the only one I have right here has this annoying not for resale thing on it. But so this is In the Silence of Decay, which is the first one, and how we were all talking about whether we were somebody who makes up towns or has to stick exactly to real things. I am also stick exactly with real things. And so after my historical series set in the 1800s, I was like, I need something that I need just a little less research for. I'm going to do something slightly more, I'm going to do something more recent. So this series takes place in the late 1970s, early 1980s, and it takes place in New Mexico. So it's actually, most of the series is on the Navajo reservation. My main character is ex-CID, which is the Criminal Investigation Division in the Army. So he was formerly an investigator in the Army. He one of my readers' favorite characters is his daughter. Her name is Molly. They have an estranged relationship in the beginning of book one. She has grown up not knowing him at all. But then her mother dies, and so she ends up back with her father. So actually, one of the things that people really love about book one is that relationship, the growth of that relationship. So the book that is coming out in July is the third book in that series. And we have followed the main character, James, and his daughter, Molly, from stumbling upon a dead body in the first book and solving a murder through this book. They've now have a life on the reservation, even though they are not Navajo, but they have made relationships there, and they've started a private investigator business. So that is where I am at with book three, and they are all based on, they all kind of revolve around real events that happened in history, in this area usually. So they're all based on real things. There was still a lot more research that has gone into this series than I think I had originally planned on, coming from that mid 1800s series, but there's a lot of real things in there. So I hope, no matter what series people pick up of mine, they're going to learn a little bit of something about historical events.
That sounds awesome. All right, Jan.
Yes, well, continuing the historical thread, even when I write contemporaries, I love to bring in historical details. So my next one, the one that's on pre-order and comes out in March, the ebooks are on pre-order. The print books will be coming soon by launch date, and then audio usually follows a few weeks later. But that's the first in the series is a Sea Breeze Inn. And the book that's coming out is called Sea Breeze Library. And what's unique about the Summer Beach series is that it's centered around an old house that has been converted into an inn. But the former owner suffered from Alzheimer's. And so she would hide things in the house. And some things had immense value. We found in the first book, we found some paintings that had great historical value that were squirreled away during World War II. And then in others, we found valuables as well as things that are valuable on a personal level. And so Seabreeze Library is, there's something new coming up. There's a new discovery. They're in the middle of a renovation now, finally, after this is book number 11, and they're doing a renovation finally. And they do find something else. I won't tell you what, but this one is special to me, as they all are.
Now I want to redo my bathroom and find some artwork.
Oh, yeah, you never know what you're going to find hidden in those walls. And then another one I'm working on is Hibiscus Heights, and that's in my new beach Crown Island series, so named after Coronado Island in San Diego. So that's Beachview Lane. Where is it? Oh, it's on this side. There's Beachview Lane. And so Hibiscus Heights is number 4 in that series. They're all available at Barnes & Noble, from my series to my standalones in all formats, paperback, ebook, audiobook. Barnes & Noble makes it easy to find large print as well. So I've got all my large print there. And what else? 2 more surprises coming toward the end of the year, but I can't really reveal that yet. So stay tuned.
All right. Well, I think all we have left is me. So I will tell you that the reason that I reached out to Barnes & Noble to try to set this up is that last year, well, so I've known that I wanted to write this book for a while. I told you guys I pick real places. I wanted in the bequest, which I told everyone else told out their books and forgot. But this is my women's fiction that's free that I talked about with the ranch. It's called The Bequest. It's kind of hard to hold it up and not look like an idiot, right? Because there's all this stuff blocking it. I'm like, where's my camera? Anyway, so there's The Bequest. When I wrote that, I did what I've done in almost all my books. And the story picks up sort of after the trauma. So I always put my people through stuff in the book, but I usually give them a bunch of crappy stuff that happens right before the book starts. Like, my husband died, but I'm mostly over it, that kind of stuff. So I have these 2 widows. They're not quite ready for love, but they're like almost ready, right? So like in this one, when someone tries to kiss her, she shoves him in the link, but she thought about it first before she shoved him. Anyway, so this one is my new women's fiction, and I've been wanting to write it for a while. It's called The Irish Escape. Isn't that? I love my covers. Anyway, the crumbly old castle. There's more than one crumbly old estate in this book. So my tagline on it is 3 best friends, 2 crumbling estates, and 1 trip that changes everything. The difference between this one and my last women's fiction series, if you read the Birch Creek Ranch series, because it is my best-selling series so far, is that this one starts when all the bad crap happens. So you have these 3 friends that have been best friends. We have a lot of horses at our house. So these guys were all riding together all through like elementary school and junior high and high school. So they're barn besties is what I called it. And they've gotten together every year for 20 years to do a girls' trip. And this year when they get together to do their girls' trip, all of them are struggling with things that they haven't really talked about. Because I don't know about you guys, but if you have friends that you've been friends for a long time, you're not like, guess what? My husband's a jerk. Usually like that kind of, you're maybe not even willing to accept it yourself until you get there. And then some stuff comes out and suddenly you're like, this bad stuff's happening, right? So all 3 of these girls look very put together and happy and everything's fine. And when they go on this girls' trip, a bunch of stuff happens right before in their lives. And so they have each other. In The Bequest, you have these 2 people that aren't really close and they become closer. These 3 are best friends. And it's sort of like an ode to friendship. And there will be just as much romance in this series. I think there will be quite a lot of meaningful and heartfelt romance, but there isn't any in this book. So if you're someone who's like, I need my happily ever after in that book, this ain't for you, because this first book is definitely the women going through the misery. The one lady in chapter 1 is very organized and put together, and somehow she got the day wrong that she was supposed to leave. So she gets her Uber and goes to the airport and gets there and goes to scan her ticket, and they're like, you leave tomorrow. And she's like, what?
Well, better than left yesterday.
Yeah, that's better. You're right. So she Ubers home, but doesn't really want to tell anyone. She's kind of embarrassed, and she gets back to her house, and her husband is sleeping with someone else in her house. And all she realizes it's happening, sees the hot pink stilettos, and is like, oh my gosh. And she always thought that she would be the person who would be like, how could this be? And like storm in on him. And instead she's like, I don't even know what to do with this. And so she just turns around, stays at a hotel that night, and goes on the girls' trip. So that's just one of the 3. But all 3 of them are dealing. One of them's a widow, and then these other 2 have marriages that are not doing great. And so these 3 women go on this trip, and it's called the Irish Escape for a reason. But they end up buying a crumbly estate. And you can kind of, I guess that's a spoiler, but I feel like you can kind of tell when it says the crumbly old castle and the Irish Escape, string these together, maybe they stay. Anyway, so what, of course, because I obsess over real places, I found a place that is by the castle that I need for a love interest in the future. And that is also a crumbling sort of estate itself. That's the one that they buy. And guys, it was on the market, and it has all this cool history. Like Fred Astaire's sister, who is actually more famous than Fred Astaire.
Wait, did you buy a house?
I didn't buy it, but we're staying at it because it's got a VRBO. And so we're staying there when we go. And I talked to the owners to make sure I could get permission. And all these pictures are in there. So like this book actually has a bunch of real pictures of a real place we're going to go stay at for 3 days. And I'm like really excited. Anyway, it was a lot of fun to write the first book, but writing about, and so the second book is on pre-order. It's called The Creaky Old Barn. This one came out February 15th. So it's out now. It's out everywhere. And anytime you write something different, this is my only B.E. Baker book that has a swear word in it. But I usually write all my drafts with some swear words. And then when I go through and edit, I take them all out. I'm like, oh, he stumbled and swore under his breath. Oh, right? Like, I write that stuff out. But I could not write this out. And actually, what happens to one of the friends, the other friend who's married but doesn't have kids, is something that happened to a good friend of mine. And I got her permission to use it as the genesis of this character and what was going on in her life. So this is actually like one of the characters. Her story is something that happened to a dear friend of mine. And it's, I couldn't change that word because it is something that her husband called her, and it just like broke things that he would call her that. So I had one of my art team members, and I love my art team from the bottom of my heart, but she was very upset that it had the B word in it. So if that will bother you, don't read it. Okay. It has that in there. I could not edit it out without destroying the integrity of the story. When they refer to it, she says, he called me a witch, but that's not what he said. So anyway, then the other book, and this is a departure for me. All of my books are either very realistic in that it's like a super rich guy who lives in a super tiny town who has a 6-pack and is a doctor and also a horse trainer, or they're fantasy where there's like a dragon shifter. So mine are all, set on present day mostly. And while I was doing my prologue, and I should show you this because I think it's funny. I was doing my prologue for my Dragon Shifter book 2, right? See, when I was researching my prologue, I was researching for the theme. All of my books have themes. I'm like kind of a literature nerd. And my theme was what makes a monster, right? Because these dragons have invaded Earth. And while I was researching that, I stumbled upon the Donner Party story. Because like, aren't they monsters, right? The Donner Party, everyone knows the Donner Party, they cannibalized. They're the worst, right? And as I researched more and more about the Donner Party, I like fell into a hole. My husband was like, what is happening? Like 30 books showed up from Amazon on the Donner Party. It was like one after another. He's like, are you reading all these? Where are all these? And they got like more and more, like they went from like nonfiction books on it to like Patrick Breen's journal to like Virginia Reed's diary and letters, and like they collected interviews from this guy named McGlashan, and I was like, I have to know more. Like the more I found out, I was like, I need to know more. There were all these like, it's funny because if someone told me, Bridget, you will think the Donner Party is inspiring, I would be like, you're crazy. But my book is actually called Hungry, the Inspiring Tale of 3 Donner Party Survivors. And I fell into a research hole and did nothing but this for like a long time, and then put off books and was late and had to write 2 novels in 4 weeks, write and edit and polish 2 novels in 4 weeks because I wrote this instead. Oops, sorry. When they were this is like what just happened with the chair. I was like, whoops. My husband's like, what's happening? I'm like, I have these books too. I'm going to lose my pre-order privileges. 4,800 pre-orders that are all going to go away, but I have to write this. So I absolutely just fell into like a whole writing about this, because these people, instead of being an anecdote, out of all those books that I bought and read, what I wanted was like a first person account of what happened. And I wanted to know it from the women's point of view. And there were no first person accounts that I could find at all. There was a weird fantasy one. Don't recommend, but that's nothing personal. It was not to my taste. I feel like the Donner Party story is scary enough. You don't need monsters. But anyway, but this though, there were so many beautiful miracles. If you like inspirational fiction, and I know that sounds weird, you will like this, because there were miracles that happened. And these women, like some of them became very good friends throughout this. And there was a mother who had to choose, like, do I save my children or do I help these other people who are literally starving in front of me, just like my kids are? What do I do here? And it was really a touching and amazing story. As I read more about it, I was like, this story needs to be told. These people deserve to have what actually happened told instead of this salacious nonsense claptrap. So I had never written historical, and I'd always said, I don't write historical. I already do way too much research for my stuff that's set here when I'm doing research for all these pictures and stuff. I'm like, mine have actual pictures from the estate on all these pages. I'm like, that's enough research. And then I wrote this one. But if you are at all interested in finding out more about the Donner Party, you want to go look up Hungry, the inspiring story of the Donner Party. It just came out March 1st. So it just released. But we are like way out of time. Sorry, Nook. But we wanted to say thank you so much to our readers, because as much as we love Barnes & Noble, and we do, we really love you guys. Like, we were talking before this started, and we were saying how awesome our jobs are. If we've convinced you of anything, you should try writing a book. But we love what we do. We get to make up stories. We get to research, and that can be a research trip a la Naomi, where we bury ourselves in a library, or you could go out and eat lots of food and celebrate like Bridget researches. And any which way we're doing it, we love what we do. Someone was just asking me today what my retirement plan was. And I was like, why would I retire? If I'm going into a home for senility, then I will be retiring. But I have probably some good fantasies if I don't really know what's going on. Anyway, I don't want to retire because I love my job. And the only reason we can do this is because of you guys. So as I've been watching these comments, love your series, you guys are the best, blah, blah, blah. Most of them are not for me. But as I read these glowing comments for these other 5 beautiful ladies, I think that our title for this is right. Women Rock. And predominantly, I think most of my readers are women, and I love you guys. And I know that these 5 authors love you guys too. Thank you for letting us do our jobs. Thank you for supporting us, for reading our books, for caring about our stories and our made up people and some of our real people too. And thanks for coming tonight and listening to us talk.
Definitely.
And if you haven't seen it, run check the link and go join the giveaway so you can get our 6 free books.
See you.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye.
Let's hope that Leah's listening and can turn the